Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken, and
I'm Keith Eyles, and we are both independent filmmakers who enjoy discussing genre movies, film franchises, and the various associated media with those. And for this special episode to coincide with the home media launch of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we are very pleased to be at Orbital Comics with two returning guests. We have comic book fan Graham Williams.
Hello there.
And our host for this evening, Paul Dunn.
Hello.
So.
Sorry, was I supposed to do all that?
Why are we in Orbital Comics?
Yes, well, you know.
London's best comic shop. Why are you in London's best comic shop? Well.
Plug. Absolutely. Well, it seems kind of fitting, doesn't it? Because the last time we were here was when we recorded our episode on the late Stan Lee.
Yes.
Which obviously seemed very appropriate. And, you know, last year there were various films that came out that we wanted to talk about. And one of the favourites for sure was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I know we've all got kind of various opinions and relationships with that film. So we thought we missed it in its cinema run. So because it's coming out on home media this week, we thought we would share our thoughts. So
yes, and just a warning, we will be getting into spoilers, so do watch the film before watching this podcast, because it's, well, spoiler alert, I loved it. So, you know, I wouldn't want to ruin the experience for you by, you know, you listening to this and then watching the film.
Can I ask, is there anyone sitting here who's seen it and didn't like it? Because I'm yet to find someone who hasn't enjoyed the film.
That's because lately a lot of films in this genre have not been that good, and this is a film that does everything right. You know, people might say, "Oh, it's a basic story, it's an origin story," but it does it in a way that blockbusters of old used to do it. You know,
Okay.
you have, you know. You get to meet the characters, you get to know them a bit, and then you see them go through this journey, and then you are with them at the end. And they're not all powerful at the beginning. You know, you see a progression, and you know you follow it.
Could I just interject at this time and say that I do have some niggles, so this podcast may actually get a bit heated.
Okay.
Apologies to the listeners there in advance.
so it's not a total movie heaven then?
It is not.
Ooh.
No.
Okay.
However, I'm sure that as we progress, and I do pick up needles and pens stuck into my torso and everything from you guys, and you know I do recover from all the bruises, the silent punches during this that I'll be able to speak again and.
It'll make
and
for a
rally.
much better conversation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Me and Simon always say that when we don't agree on something, those are the best podcasts. Unfortunately, we agree on a lot, which isn't always the best way.
It's so weird. Funny enough, when we recorded, Liz and I, who do the frame by frame film podcast here for Orbital, we recorded the Aquaman episode and the Spider-Verse episode just basically as one thing. So we did Aquaman first, and that was like a real fight because she loved Aquaman and I hated it with a passion, and it was someone came in and went, "Well, I feared for Liz's life at one point because you seemed so wound up about Aquaman," and I was like, "Yeah, I was, but I'm not going to attack my co-host."
when you two argue, it's very entertaining. So.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of that, but it like as I said, I'm yet to meet anyone who hasn't kind of really enjoyed this film. So Graham, like you'd be the first person I met who's kind of got...
just say I did actually thoroughly enjoy it, and you know,
you just have a few niggles, which is something different to than not enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've done a few movie heavens, movie hells. So
Yeah.
I did one movie hello, to you guys as well, and put a positive spin on it. But if we had to do a hell to this, then this movie would most definitely not be there. It would be on the opposite side of the
I
spectrum.
tell you, I watched this with Antonia this weekend, and she's not a big fan of Spider-Man, and she enjoyed the film. So, when a film can do that, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, my girlfriend, she doesn't watch the Marvel movies really, and we did a big. Well, I've been doing a big rewatch of all of them leading up to Endgame, which I'm hoping to finish in time for next Thursday. I probably won't get there. But the ones we have gone to see together that are sort of not MCU but are Marvel are all the Spider-Man ones. So we watched Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then Spider-Man Far From Home, and she's enjoyed all those really, but not so much. Like she's just not. And she even asked me the other night, "Would you prefer it if I liked this stuff?" And I just went, "No, not really," because
Well, what does she think of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
she hasn't seen it.
Oh, she hasn't seen it.
So this one I went to see with Liz because we had to review it that afternoon, but she hasn't seen this.
Yeah.
I was expecting to kind of like it at least as a visual kind of feast. The moment I saw the trailer way back, which was like nearly a year ago now, wasn't it? The first.
Well, this
January 2018, wasn't it? It was a long way out from its initial release. I do remember that. And there was a lot of buzz around the trailer, not just on social media, but we got to see something different, didn't we? I remember the trailer being quite dark, meaning it had a lot of black and reds to it. And knowing a little bit of the comics, where the where Miles Morales' costume was. Okay, it's going to be different, but I'll be honest, I wasn't enamoured by the. It didn't pull me in because it was personally another Spider-Man. And I was getting saturated at that point. You mentioned Amazing Spider-Mans, and I was nonplussed.
Exactly. It was like Spider-Man overload because you literally had the Amazing Spider-Man had just finished, the 2 films, and then you've got Civil War Spider-Man and Homecoming, and you're like, do we need another Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm.
So. Like yourself, Graham, I imagine everybody else was like, well, okay, it's Spider-Man animation, I might watch it, might not. It wasn't something that was on my radar to say I have to watch this. I was literally you, Keith, going, I saw it was brilliant. I was like, wow, okay.
What it was for me was, and I think we're probably all coming at this from slightly different angles. So because again, I know you, Graham, and probably you, Paul, as well, know the source material a lot better, but loose source material. But for me, I went to see Venom. I am one of the people that did go to see Venom.
The other black suit did.
Well, what happened was at the end of Venom, there was at the end of the credits, there was a sequence from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, okay, at the end of the credits. And I have to be honest, in not seeing it in context, I saw it and I was like, oh yeah.
Well, what sequence was it?
It was actually the sequence where Miles goes to Peter Parker's, again we've said about spoilers here, goes to Peter Parker's gravestone.
Oh, okay.
And the cops show up. Well, the other Peter B. Parker turns up, and then the cops, and it's the bit where he gets dragged along by the monorail type thing. And it was that sequence, and it was very amusing and all this, but it seemed really odd to stick at the end of a film like Venom. And it was sort of out of context. So when I was very lucky. I got invited to a BAFTA screening, a preview screening of Spider-Verse, and it was with a Q&A with Lord and Miller. Did a Q&A afterwards, and I went and not too sure at that stage, and I sat there, and for me, it pushed all of the boundaries of animation as well as storytelling. And if on paper, if somebody had pitched this to me, I'd have been like, hold on, a Spider-Man film where you've got like Peter Porker, Spider-Ham as one of the characters, and you're mixing sort of animation with Looney Tunes and all these different things, and I'd have thought,
I say
that
bring it
sounds
on.
terrible.
Let's do it with everything. Let's do Disney. Let's do Game of Thrones.
It's a weird thing now, because with the way comic book movies are and the way that they have accelerated now into a genre of their own, and I do believe they are a genre. In fact, right now they're the genre.
They're the genre,
yeah. When a comic book film goes wrong, especially if it's one of the really big properties, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman to a certain degree, but one of the really major properties, the studios aren't going to rest until they get both that magic combination of box office dollar and critical acclaim. Where it used to be that they were kind of just happy with one or the other. They didn't really give a toss if people liked it, as long as they paid for it. Yeah, you were going to get a sequel. The video did really well, so you're going to get a sequel. Don't worry, we'll course correct then. But now they'll just keep going until they get it, and until you get it, and until you kind of consume
on that point,
it.
Paul, they've done it. Spider-Man's won Oscar, BAFTA,
absolutely.
Other. I'm sure there are many other awards out there. I think the big three. It hasn't shown at Cannes and got the Palme d'Or yet, but I'm sure that's to come. But no, would you be arguing that actually they've finally done it?
To Sony, Marvel this time. I mean, and I bet Marvel, to a certain extent, are kind of kicking themselves that they weren't really willing to do this, because I'm willing to bet. Well, Feige would have gone nah.
No, well, I mean, here's the thing, and I said this actually on another podcast that I guested on, but unfortunately this whole bit ended up on the cutting room floor, so I'll say it again. Yeah, who would have thought that I got this? Who would have thought that I got
pause. Cue Simon. Cue Keith.
Go. Yeah. No, but what I was saying is, there's I've got a lot of friends and whatever that are. Massive fans, as we all are, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what Kevin Feige's done with the MCU, and obviously we're all getting excited about Avengers Endgame and all this sort of thing. But one of the points that I made is, there's a lot of talk now with the acquisition from Disney of Fox as to whether the X-Men are going to be part of the MCU and all of this sort of stuff. And I think in some respects it's good that not everything's in the MCU, and the reason for that is you wouldn't get films like this, you wouldn't get films like Logan, you wouldn't get films like Deadpool. Exactly, you wouldn't get these other Marvel properties that are doing something different.
Granted, there's a bit of violence to them, but there are a lot more art house. So
Logan was amazing. I really like okay, there's various quality of film, but I like the X-Men franchise, and I'm kind of happy for them to be separate, and obviously, Deadpool is a kind of, R-rated spin-off of that stuff as well. And
that's a good point, because did Disney ever have even contemplated going R-rated or actually putting their bucks behind something that was, in my opinion, as daring as Logan as well?
Well, they might have done through one of their subsidiaries, like Touchstone, Miramax, other acquisitions that they've done over the years.
I don't think Disney itself has ever put out an R-rated film.
No, 12 is the highest, really.
And I think there are things in the MCU that push the envelope of what's acceptable in a quote-unquote child's film or teenager's film. And I suspect that the guys at the top of Disney are rubbing their hands with glee, going, well, we can kind of say it's not Disney, if it all goes wrong. And it's the same for Star Wars. And, you know, I mean, do you remember the early 80s when Disney made their last foray into adult material and how wrong it all went for them, even though it produced some really good movies like The Black
I
Hole
was going to say,
and,
Black Hole is
and
one of my all-time.
Something
Tron.
Wicked This Way Comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just none of those were financially successful for Disney.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Disney always know where the dollar is. Like, they always know where the money is and
Yeah.
how to get it and how to make you pay for it again and again and again. But I think somewhere someone at Disney is kind of kicking themselves, going, "Yeah, we could have done this. We probably could have done this."
But do we have
Of course.
the figures on this one? I think on budget, it was quite high, I thought, for what I saw. Anyway, it was about 90 million, I think it was, budget,
Yeah.
Spider-Verse.
Very expensive film.
But how much did it actually make? And, you know, I know they cut a profit, but was it the profit they were after? Are we talking?
I've got a feeling it's
100
probably around the
million?
$400 million mark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're not. Apparently, it cost 90 million. This is
There we are.
online. 90 million budget to make, but it's made $375 million box office. Bearing in mind that the home media version is only coming out this week.
Like, yeah.
I did.
So
Because hasn't a fair few of the MCUs actually topped and gone past the billion
Yeah.
mark, which is
Oh,
like
yeah.
One
Oh, yeah.
not
Which is the
many,
new
but a
thing.
couple
Couple,
have.
yeah.
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 Yeah. So therefore, is this a commercial success?
Yes.
Just to go back to Paul's
Yeah.
question
I-
earlier.
It
because
is,
critical,
yeah.
yes, is one.
I think it is.
we are talking about.
I think it ultimately will come
when
down.
a film of that budget makes that amount of money, then yes. If they made 100 million, then no,
Yeah.
because the 90 million is usually just the cost of the budget, not the advertising, and the advertising can be, you know,
Twice isn't it usually?
well, I don't think it's twice the budget, but it adds to it.
So yeah, the question is it still the big success that it would have been under Disney potentially? Because you said Disney know how to make the $1 billion movies.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas this isn't.
I don't know. I think it probably would have been. Like, I mean,
well, it's
I
got
think
the
it's.
acclaim as well.
But
hasn't
also,
it?
it
That's-
came out. Yeah, sorry, Keith. Yeah.
Sorry, no, that was it. I was just saying it's got
But
the acclaim.
It
as
came
well.
out at the same time as Aquaman, which no one expected to be. I mean, I didn't expect Aquaman to be the hit that he was. Like, I am genuinely shocked.
Well, 'cause
Aquaman.
there was nothing else live action around that
Yeah.
time. I mean, we didn't have a Star Wars film.
That's true.
Yes, we had a year without. My God.
But we had the sequel to Mary Poppins though.
Also Disney.
Yes.
But I was shocked that Aquaman made the money it did.
Yes.
But yeah, I think this would turn out to be an unqualified hit. And also, as you say, they've got the critical acclaim, they've got the Oscar, the BAFTA.
Yeah.
They've won awards. They're probably happy. I did speak to someone a few years back. I think not around the time of Justice League, probably around the time of Batman v Superman. I probably shouldn't say any of this on the podcast. Okay, someone who was working in the effects industry. I won't say what company he was working for.
But he
Or I won't
was
say.
working in an effects company.
Yeah.
He had brown hair.
No. I won't say his name. But basically, he said to me, "Look, like he had quite a few things, but like we asked him to come on the podcast. He was like, not a chance. I will never go and say any of this publicly." But he said that look, the amounts of money that are reported are nowhere near what they're actually spending. You're kind of given a high base level. He said, but they're spending so much more money than you think they're spending to get these things out and ready and right. Which I was really horrified at, because the amounts that get reported are astronomical. They're,
Well, yeah. I mean, just
GDP of small countries. It's,
yeah. Well, just saying that. I mean, there's an interview that just came out this week that about J.J. Abrams' decision to make Episode 9, and he had to think long and hard because he said, "We've got 2 years. I've got no script, no sets, no actors. We've got 2 years to have a completed film."
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Although
Everything you learn in film school, out the window.
Yeah.
When you
well,
And don't forget the amount of reshoots they probably did as well.
yes.
well then, but then you look at the other end of that. I'm always surprised that Spielberg pulled together War of the Worlds in, I think that was 6 months or something like that. although they did have a completed script.
Yeah.
And they just had a very narrow window in which Tom Cruise was available. And they went, yeah, right, let's do it. And in a few months, they had that film done, shot, cut.
That's right, yeah.
ready
I mean,
to
they
go in
literally
with the
were cutting
effects.
they did the teaser trailer while they were doing the shooting. I
Yeah.
mean, the whole the other trailer where you see the attack on the bridge with the trucks and
Yeah.
everything was literally just rendered the day before it came
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
I heard that with them onto. You was talking about, obviously that's live action, but with Spider-Verse, I think I saw a factoid that, when it comes to animation, it's, there's a ratio of something like 4:1.
Yeah, animation takes a lot longer.
It does, but this one actually was longer again because
Yes.
the director's vision and what they were throwing at us. And having seen this in the cinema and now on and streaming as well, it's all there.
Oh yeah.
So at the time, I don't know how long this took to complete from script to release. But
I think it was 6 years. I believe they said
Really?
that's
because there was a
staggering
there was a
astonishing,
shitload
yeah.
of R&D that was done.
Yeah.
In the development of this way back. But I think because a lot of people have said to, even though obviously they're not the actual directors, but a lot of people have said to Lord and Miller that this is their film after Solo, a Star Wars story, which they obviously left. But of course, this was in development long before Solo, the Star Wars story, was even anything that happened. It's just that it's
Yeah.
obviously come out since then.
and yet they couldn't get it right with it not looking as if you need to be wearing 3D glasses in some of the shots and the scenes. Needle number one.
Interestingly enough, you say that, but I think that was done on purpose. I think it's meant to look slightly off.
Yeah.
And kind
Yeah.
of.
Well, it's back to that like old 60s, 70s, 3-color.
Yeah, where you have the planes
where
of
they're
animation.
slightly off, and also
the pink,
and also it was that they also did I forget the technical term for it, but the thing where it's 12 frames, not 24.
Right.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Two animation or whatever they call it. So you've got that.
Is that official
slightly...
to go back to the 1960s, 50s and 60s comic book look, where it looked as if the painter at the end couldn't actually
The print was
keep
slightly
in lines,
off.
or they were rushing so hard to get a comic book released. They had a bunch of 4-year-olds in and to try and colour it, and just went over the lines a bit too much.
I must admit, when it started, when I first saw it, because I saw this 5 times at the cinema,
Wow.
which says a lot. I mean,
Which
obviously,
one was the one which time was the one where we saw it?
4th,
at
I think,
Sony?
maybe. But
The 4th, okay.
I was going to say I was lucky. Of course, I was lucky.
like
got
I
invited.
would genuinely get, if I had to see something, like when I was younger, I would go and see things 2 or 3 times just to see them.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I was getting it and watching it. But now I would literally shoot myself in the face rather than go and see anything twice.
It has to be. I mean, for me to go and see things multiple times now, I don't do it as much as I used to, and I like to. But it has to either be a film that's quite special for me, which this was last year. And of course, as I said, I've been very lucky that a lot of them are invited screenings, so that it's not like I'm forking out 5 times. Although I have paid to go see it as well, and I've ordered it on Blu-ray.
So you're going for the full consumer experience on this.
Well,
one.
here's the thing. You say about the full consumer experience. One of the things I was gutted, because when I first saw it, I actually did for a minute think, hold on a second, shit, have they put the 3D version on? And we haven't got, because of what you were saying. But this was a film that I actually wanted to see. There is a 3D version of this film as well, which screened in the US.
I agree
that
with
hasn't
this.
here, and I want to see this in 3D.
I hate 3D.
Normally I do, but I want to see this in 3D.
I hate 3D. If it disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't shed a tear. But this, I genuinely thought, when we were sitting there watching it, we saw it. I went with Liz. We saw it in like the View in Westfield in their scene screen. So it was lovely big seats, table next to you, so you had plenty of space for yourself. Cinema was empty, nice big screen.
Could I just say, I was in my living room on Saturday night with the missus. We had the TV close. You've only just met. So Are we? You were in Westfield, right?
Yeah.
Just to make sure that you're correct there. You weren't in the living room now.
No.
Okay, right.
But it felt like you were in the living room.
Yeah.
Very comfortable. But I did have this kind of pang of, this would have been one of those, I felt that kind of Mark Kermode moment where he had to go online and say about Gravity, Gravity's better in 3D. And it's just like, yeah, this would have worked in 3D.
Yeah. Some films would, and I think this
3D's getting better.
This would have. I would have liked to have. As I said, I ended up seeing it 5 times. I'd have loved for one of those times to have been a 3D experience. Yeah. But
does anybody know whether they're going to release it in the UK?
No, I don't believe there is a 3D version on the Blu-ray.
I think what happened with the cinema release, unfortunately, was one of the cinema chains did a preview for their members, and that was a one-off screening of the 3D version. So I think it did screen, but it was like a special advanced screening, and the general release of it was just the 2D. Which
I also probably could have stood to see this in 4DX because I bet it would have been fun.
Yeah, probably could have been quite fun. Yeah.
Which again, I'm not like, I don't know what's happened to me as I get older. I hate all this stuff, but I've started to warm to these kind of experiences. I think I know where my line is. It's probably that Screen X rubbish.
Just on the consumer experience, I've actually downloaded it onto my Kindle. I downloaded it from Amazon there. We could actually watch it on my Kindle. My Kindle's about 4 years old. It's got little marks on it, things I can't actually get rid of. It's this tiny screen. You could have the sound off if you wanted to. So we could actually have a look at that, and you could to see it. I don't know if it's in 4DX, 4DYZ, or whatever.
Are you not a fan of the 3D experience? This sort of stuff.
I think I share your opinion, apart from the fact that it was actually with Keith, I remember now. Went to the IMAX here in London, and we saw Blade Runner 2049. Yes, that's the one in the future, yeah. And that was one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever had.
And that was 3D?
It was there was loads of things happening to us. There's 3D,
IMAX,
4DX,
and IMAX.
Right,
it wasn't
okay.
4DX,
yes,
no.
And the sound quality was super.
Yeah.
And that's when, again, to appreciate good sound quality,
Yeah.
rather than just.
I must admit, the screening of Blade Runner I went to, the screen was actually vibrating from the sound.
Really?
You know the bit when they're flying over all the sort of solar panels.
Okay.
It's an opening shot, but the thing was, these are all these solar panels everywhere, and the screen's going like this.
Wow.
It's literally shaking.
But no, so that that was not a gimmick. I think maybe to expand on our opinion there, Paul, is the 3D has become a major gimmick if you're actually willing to shoot that way. It's like shooting in 70mm as well. You know, it can be gimmicky. You know, it's expensive too. But you see a movie that has had the vision from a director, producers, etc., to have that, then it works. Which is why I think this movie would have been amazing in its in 3D. I mean, but I've deliberately then not gone to see any 3D movies since the Blade Runner one, because I think I was utterly spoiled there, and it would take something big and to top that. Unfortunately, again, I genuinely thought with Spider-Verse that it was meant for 3D, but we didn't see it 3D, so that was just a little niggle in my head when I was watching it in the cinema. Sat down there comfy, all very well, and it was a heck of a rush to watch this movie, sound and visuals as well, but just those scenes. But thankfully, the story and everything else carried. Yeah, it doesn't. Me on, and it wasn't too much of a distraction. You got used to it as you normally do with these kind of movies. You do kind of get used to.
I mean, I must admit, I watching it, and I saw it at the cinema as well. I wasn't sitting there thinking, "Oh, this would be better in 3D." I never thought that for a second.
Not for a second. Where Miles and his dad are in the police car early on.
Yeah, this is the scene where he drives them to school.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. And there's one there. His father is pointing over to a new coffee store.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it blurs and comes back into focus. Again, I had the benefit of watching this again
Yeah.
recently in cinema room, which I call living room. And I noticed that. Now, whether that was a director trying to do some depth of field,
So I think it was just a focus pull.
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
pull in
Yeah.
animation. Great if you're doing that. But then he looked out there, Miles had looked out the window, and there was a street scene, some people walking around, and it was just that pink and green hue, almost like those halos around people. I just spotted that a lot.
Well, I think that effect also was to do with the fact that the universes were combining as well. Because but at that point they already had the first
wave.
Yeah.
The glitch.
That's
So
it,
you could be talking me around for it not to be niggle number one, which I could strike from.
Well, it's a weird thing. It's funny you talk about like the universes combined, because this, like, we had to talk about this quite a lot on the pod. We did, like, it's not based, although it's called Into the Spider-Verse, as a film, it is not based on the comic book Spider-Verse.
Right.
Really.
Okay.
It's
What is the storyline for the comic book Spider-Verse?
So
then?
I think it's like I have to go back from my very hazy memory, but it's about the sort of family of vampires. They are really kind of, I guess that's what you call them, called Morlun, who appear in J. Michael Straczynski's Spider-Man run. Which was the Peter Parker Spider-Man, the standard universe, and they basically feed off Spider-Man. And I think it's about, as I recall, I could be wrong, this is why I really need Liz here, because she does know absolutely what it's about. But it's about that family of vampires moving through dimensions and kind of feeding off all the different Spider-Men that have ever been. This is based more on, although it takes characters from that run, this is based more on a run called Spider-Men, which was Brian Michael Bendis in the Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man comic, where he brings the Peter Parker from what I think is the 616 universe, so the Marvel universe, into the Ultimates universe. And they meet Miles Morales, because the Ultimate Universe, Peter Parker is dead by that point. So it takes more from the Miles Morales comics than it does from Spider-Verse. Yeah. So it's a bit of a mislead in terms of title, in much the way Infinity War is nothing like the comic that's called Infinity War.
Yeah, they take the title in a brief,
Well,
very loosely.
Let's talk more about the character then, because I've never read the Miles Morales comics. I just remember when they announced that they were going to do Miles Morales, and I remember the announcement was they're doing a Black Spider-Man.
Yeah, which I think is somewhat reductive to the kind of thing that they're trying to do. There is a kind of argument I've heard against Brian Michael Bendis, because Brian Michael Bendis writes a lot of characters who are people of colour. But of course, because he himself is not a person of colour, this then becomes, I think, a bit of an issue for some comics fans. It's a shame. I think he writes the characters very well, but also I understand why people get upset. And I don't know where the balance is for that. So it's Brian Michael Bendis' character, and it was very much billed, as you say, as the Black Spider-Man. I had not heard of it because it was around the time I started working here, and then I heard about it, but the comics were selling so fast I didn't have time to read them, which happens frequently if you work in a comic shop. Like, unless you're going to grab something, that's it, it's gone. However, I later read the Ultimate Collections, which are really big, sort of 15 or 20 issues at a time. They're amazing. And as soon as I put those down, I was like, okay, whatever the next Spider-Man movie was, and this was just before they announced Far From Home, I was like, it should be this guy. Because we've had so many years now of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
We've had 2 films in recent years. We've had Tobey Maguire's 3 films a few years before. You know, we've had endless interpretations of Peter Parker. Please let it be something else.
And I remember for a while, Sony was pushing to do a Miles Morales story. But I don't know what the politics were to stop it. But I'm kind of glad that they left it for this.
Yeah.
Because it works so well. Because you're introduced to a character who isn't Peter Parker. And so it makes doing the origin story a lot easier.
Well, sorry.
So no, all I was going to say is I found it, because I didn't know the comics of the Miles Morales story. And for me, I just found the whole thing really refreshing because, okay, you know, we've got a mixed race Spider-Man now, but who cares? Forgetting that, you know, you're talking, you know, he was also younger than Peter Parker. You know, he's supposed to be like 13, I think, or whatever. So he was younger. He's not, you know, his parents are still around, okay, which is different, you know. And also, even down to the spider powers, you know, he's got this ability, you know, he can do the wall crawling and all of that stuff, but he can also, you know, go invisible, and he has that electric shock thing. And all of that sort of stuff. So I just thought that all round it was nice to have a different take on Spider-Man than what we've been used to, and certainly using him as the character in this film that this all unfolds through the eyes of, and having him as, if you like, the framing character.
He's the protagonist.
The heart of this story. Because I thought it was really well drawn, really well vocally performed, and just everything. And for an animated story to keep me interested and excited for it's nearly 2 hours long, or just over 2 hours, I think, which is quite long for an animated film, and it kept me engaged in that time. I saw things I'd not seen before, which I thought was great. It made me laugh, obviously, because there's a lot of humor in it. It's also quite dark, and towards the end I was emotionally involved when they were all going to say goodbye at the end. I, you know, regardless of the little jokes that were thrown in there, I was actually quite moved. And I thought, wow, for a piece of animation on film to do that and capture me that way, that's why I went and saw it, you know, 5 times, because I just loved this. It was so refreshing.
Actually, it was the, I tell you what made me cry, and it was the Stan Lee moment. And that I genuinely did tear up at that point, because I think he had just died, and it was just like the you know, the line about, oh, don't worry, they all fit eventually, you know, the costumes, and it was just like, and you know, the way he's kind of huckstering the costume is kind of how the wider world viewed Stan Lee. I mean, I don't know if you know, in DC Comics they did a character called Funky Flashman, who basically is supposed to be Stan Lee. And he's a kind of, you know, P.T. Barnum-esque kind of wild and wacky guy, but it's like,
believer.
Yeah.
But
it's their parody.
Because there was a wink there, there was a glint in his eye. They really played well there, and played to the fact that he's not an angel, because there's no refund. I'm making money out of you, buddy.
But it's so weird, because they must have recorded that like years ago, or whenever they were doing the voice recordings, and it just felt like something that they did after he died. It was very fitting, but it's just, you know, from a point of view that, you know, this was recorded well before he actually died, so it's, you know.
Could I return to Peter Parker?
Please,
Simon, you said, you know, the origin stories, and everyone's saying, well, actually, it's good to see somebody different from Peter Parker. But what I felt in this one was that actually we had a different slant on Peter Parker, where now I only last year read Superior Spider-Man, where it was Doc Ock's mind in Peter Parker's body, and he became Spider-Man. And I know there's controversy over it, but I genuinely loved it because it was to that point where, yay, we've got a different type of Spider-Man, a different take on the Spider-Man, okay, and the goodness that you always had, that Peter Parker had. But in Spider-Verse movie, I thought it was wonderful. No, not that we had a death of Spider-Man. That was quite shocking, actually. But then we had Chubster, a 30-something-year-old. I've let it all go. Peter Parker.
Yes.
He was Peter Parker to all his counterparts in when you first start reading about Spider-Man and Peter when he becomes Spider-Man. Was always the loser to everyone else, but actually he wasn't. So as he donned the mask and the costume, he was always the hero. But this one, actually, you've got a full-on loser Spider-Man and loser Peter Parker. Was it Peter B. Parker?
Peter B. Parker, yes.
Yeah.
Is one of the most original, in my opinion, original takes on Peter Parker to actually make him a proper loser now.
Yeah.
Not a guy with a big heart. It's Miles Morales who actually pushes him and plays on his guilt.
Yeah.
And really brings out the old Peter Parker I know and love and always root for. They always, they always get up regardless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is though that which again is another great part of this film is the way that they treat Peter Parker, the original Peter Parker. So we get for each of the Spider-Men this how it begins.
Yes.
Let's go back to the start.
The abbreviated origin story.
And so we get this wonderful montage at the beginning, including so much stuff from the comic books, the cartoons, the films. I mean, brilliantly that they take the piss out of Spider-Man 3. I also did this thing.
Yes.
It's the whole John Travolta walk.
Isn't one of the Spider-Men in one of the Peter Parkers? I think it's the one that dies, is apparently supposed to be Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I've heard.
Well, what's interesting...
I think it's an amalgamation, because there is the stuff that comes from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man stuff. So you have the upside-down kiss, even though it's Mary Jane who's upside down during the kiss. It's that wonderful thing. And the whole, when he's emo Spider-Man, but he's just in the Spider-Man costume going like this, and he goes, yes, that was a thing that happened. And then also the whole thing about the Christmas album.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's brilliant.
Which if you stay to the end of the credits, you actually get to hear the song.
Yeah. Did you hear about that? That it was Lord Miller had toyed with it, but only in earlier versions of the script. And they just happened to be in London for some event or whatever, and they happened to hear or be told about Chris Pine, who is the voice of Peter Parker, and hear that he actually had a great singing voice, and they either greenlit the album, or they went to their other producers and said, "Yeah, we're going to."
Sorry, I have to correct you. I thought it was Chris Pine as well, but it's not Chris Pine.
Is it
Isn't
not?
It's not. It's Jake Johnson.
Yeah.
Jake Johnson
is the voice of Peter Parker. I know. I thought
of the actual singing of the Christmas album.
Yeah, I actually thought the Christmas one was Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, you're correct. There's fucking hell. How many Peter Parkers are there?
I think that's the topic of this conversation, isn't it? There's an effing lot of them. Yeah, so
because I thought it was the same voice who did Peter Parker and older and Peter B. Parker, but no, you're correct.
Yeah, so there we are.
Yeah.
So no, I love the fact that these guys are ready to change their creative angle on this and go, actually, let's have a laugh here and let's push out and get a guy who has become a superstar, Chris Pine, and rip. Yeah, so we have two Kirks who can sing there. We have Shatner and Pine.
There you go, you see.
But no, so that I love the fact that they did that, and again, taking.
Okay, because it was weird because I remember at the screening I was like, I'm sure that's Chris Pine. I'm sure it's Chris Pine doing the voice of Peter Parker, and then you watch the credits and it's like Peter
Jake Johnson.
Yeah, Jake Johnson. Oh,
Yeah.
we are.
Right.
But,
why you didn't use the same actor to do the same voice? That's so weird.
Well, you've got the blonde Peter Parker, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
They sound so similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really notice the change in actors' voices. That is very wow.
But then I didn't pick up on the fact it was Nick Cage. Nor did my wife.
Oh.
When we were watching it together, she was like,
Spider-Man Noir.
"Who was that Spider-Man Noir?" I went,
No! Straight away, there's
well
no
done you.
denying it was Nicolas Cage. It's funny because as well as watching this at the weekend, I tried to watch another Nicolas Cage film whose title escapes me, but at the moment Nicolas Cage goes from doing really great stuff like this and Mandy, even though I'm not a big fan of Mandy, but we all agree, good work there from Nicolas Cage, and utter shite from stuff like Left Behind.
Isn't that his career though? To be fair,
Yeah.
he has hopped about.
He doesn't turn anything
I
down.
don't know.
Yeah,
There's that persistent-
of late. I mean, the guy had a good run, like Con Air and Leaving Las Vegas. Those there was a kind of there was a quality to it all, but now it's so hit and miss.
There's a persistent rumour concerning why he's. I don't know if you've heard this.
Probably, but go ahead.
So apparently he was hit with a huge tax bill, or his accountants had defrauded him for so much money that he's now paying off a massive tax bill, and that's why he's just pumping film out.
Yay for the audiences of the world.
Yeah.
Go poor taxmen.
But he has refuted this. I think Empire did an interview with him last year, or the year before, where they went, can we just do an interview where we just address some of these crazy rumours about you? And he literally goes through them one by one. And he said, no, I've never taken a movie to pay a bill. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. Every actor
if it's not that, then it's probably he fears that if he doesn't accept stuff, that the parts are going to dry up.
Yeah, and I wish he'd...
Which they kind of have, because the major Hollywood studios don't use him.
No.
It's all now independent stuff, apart from this bit part in a Sony film. It's funny to think that years ago, back when he did Ghost Rider, he would have been the lead, and now he's supporting actor.
Well, I mean, I think it started to turn around the time, funny enough, that Superman Lives kind of collapsed. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you feel about that. We've all seen John Schnepp's great documentary on it, I'm sure. But around then, you notice it started to kind of wane and wax. And I don't know what personal problems he went through. I always
I don't know. I think
regardless of how many millions they've got.
Some actors do have a certain shelf life within Hollywood, and it could be that the films don't make money, or they have falling out with certain producers. I don't know.
I wish I was doing what he's doing. That's all I'll add.
Take a drink. Keith has mentioned the fact there's another actor doing better than him.
That's everyone. No,
it's the Keith drinking game.
No, I'm just saying. And also, if you want a good movie of his in recent years, check out a little-known film called Mum and Dad.
Yes, I hear that's
brilliant.
Yeah,
that was last year. Was that 2018?
Yeah, it was like a year ago or a year and a half.
Yeah, it looked like
ago,
a comic horror from the trailer I saw.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Isn't Joe supposed to be really good? Is it called Joe? The one where he kind of takes on this kid to work with him. I can't remember what he does. He's working in a swamp or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be excellent.
Talking of shelf life, though, I'm seeing with this one, are we looking at an extremely long and lustrous shelf? That doesn't sound right, but anyway, we'll stick to it. For Mahershala Ali, who also is in this Oscar-winning film, and then in Green Book.
Green Book,
That's it. Yeah. So this man, who's one double Oscar winner is apparently doing brilliantly currently, 2019, with
True Detective.
True Detective, that's that one, the third one now, yeah. And then I thought I would never have guessed, even with a test, you pick two names on a sheet of paper, who's the voice actor of the uncle, of Miles's uncle, to be him, and he's done another star turn where he had, it wasn't a cameo as Nick Cage's was for Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah.
So you have a multiple choice question of two. Who is it, Ron Charlie or Sandra Bullock? And I think Sandra Bullock. I really would. It was just, I thought it was fantastic.
The thing is, though, with voice acting for animation, it's, as I understand, and I'm not saying any sort of work is easy, but it's relatively easy payday for a lot of these guys, because they come in, they do a week. Have you
seen Mark Hamill do the Joker for the
Yeah, but it is still, like, in terms of, for the big actors, it's like, okay, well, I can do $100,000 doing this for 5 days, or I can do a movie that's going to be
Keith.
But you know what I mean? Like they're the people that are earning the big bucks. Keith, I'm sorry, but I'm guessing that you're not on that sort of $100,000 for 5 days.
No, not even
but
on the bottom.
Of course,
rung.
they're gonna. I think they'll take, because it's just like, yeah, I'll do this 5 days. I have to stand in the box for 12 hours. Like, fine, I don't care. $100,000. That's my tax for the year paid, or that's that paid. That's the fucking new wing I want to put on the house paid. It's, why not?
Yeah, and at the moment, animation does really well at the box office, because most parents will take their young kids to go and see animation. I mean, we got at the moment there's a film out over here called Wonder Park, probably do really well, but all the reviews I've heard of it is it's terrible.
Don't forget, being a father myself, you're right, Simon, because a lot of these animations will actually come around the holidays. So this, what do you call it, Wonder Park? It's now, we've got a holiday happening.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think
Hollywood's
really cotton on to this now, because it used to be that animations would come out in half term. So when I was working in cinema in 1999 to 2000, the autumn half term, we had Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything else. Now, with like the school holidays, I mean, you've got let's think what's at the cinema now. So you got Wonder Park. Trying to think what else has come out lately.
Well, the last half term, we had Lego Movie 2, which we went to see.
Oh, that's right. Lego Movie 2, How to Train Your Dragon 3, and there was another one.
Yeah, but the animations, they are there.
Yeah,
you're right. Well, we will take them, because where it's not that they'll love them, it's that they're safer. You've got your PG to use certificates. The 12s are hardly ever animation, as in full-on animation. If we could argue whether CGI fests we get these days at 70% CGI is animation or live action.
But that's more aimed to the teenage market. But I'm just saying, my point being is now that Hollywood has seen that also the half terms are a good time to release their main films as well, because it used to be just animation. It used to be, let's give something for the parents to take their kids to go and see, but now we're getting like the major films. I mean, the fact that we're getting Avengers Endgame at the end of Easter, before even, I mean, the summer season now starts the end of April, and it's creeping
is a
forward.
reason why the Marvel movies are released around that time, though. And it's not necessarily to do with Easter. It's because the following week is Free Comic Book Day. So the following weekend is Free Comic Book Day, and they always have a big release in time for Free Comic Book Day. And it's partially to do with that.
Yeah.
I'd imagine the school holidays are more of a consideration for them.
Well, there's that, but I mean, if you've not
niche.
noticed, the summer blockbuster season now is long. I mean, before it used to be the middle of June to the end of August, and now it's the end of April to the end of August, and sometimes it doesn't even reach the end of August.
I remember you used to get, like, flicking through, say, Empire way back in the 90s when you were dealing with things like Patriot Games coming out as a summer film. They would go through their films coming out over the summer period, and out of all the films, 20 or 30 films that were coming out over the same period, or 10 films that were coming out, or 15 films, they would pick the big 5. It's like, think you can reduce it down to 5 now for the summer? No. It's more like the big 15 or the big 12 out of 50 movies coming out. There's so much more.
All of these models and the consumption model and everything is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
So,
and remind me, when was the initial cinematic release of Spider-Verse?
To get back to Spider-Verse, yes, the original cinematic release was December 2018.
So we're hitting Christmas.
So it was hitting Christmas.
Yes. You said earlier, it's no doubt, yeah. There you go. Because I remember the summer blockbusters. As a student, I worked in a cinema over the summers, and you had the marquee movies, and then September is where you got all the quality. They wouldn't have made the big bucks competing.
Well, because they were
August.
moving to the Oscar period then, wouldn't they?
Slowly, but the Oscar period is more January to March.
So December Spider-Verse is played. It's in there. It follows the rules. Tick the box.
Well, again, this is a change that's happened since. Because Christmas period used to be Christmas films or films that they didn't quite know how well they were going to do, and then we got Lord of the Rings every Christmas, and from that point onwards, Hollywood went, "Ooh, we can make a lot of money at this time of year if we bring out a big series." That's why they got Peter Jackson to come back and do the Hobbit films. That's why
didn't Harry Potter move?
Harry Potter's were November,
right? Yeah.
So they were kind of like. Well, they would just be after the half term, because they were a half term now, and that time's always last week of October, so Halloween. So
with this mid-December, cinema release, is this out on Blu-ray now here?
It comes out this week. This week.
This
is why we thought we'd record this to get it out.
Mid-April.
Yeah.
That's one of the longest delays I've seen in modern memory. 5 months, because normally it's 3 to 4.
It's been on streaming for a few weeks, hasn't it? But
that annoys me.
Here's the thing as well.
Oh, you imagine? Remember the days when we had to wait 2 years for it to come out on video?
I believe. I remember Kevin Smith talking about in one of his books that he thinks the reason why cinema was under threat as a medium was because the release window between cinema and DVD and Blu-ray had shrunk down to nothing. And it was like, and I got to admit, I'm the same. I'm just like, if I've missed it, it'll be out on Blu-ray, or I'll get it digitally, and I'll use that to size up, because I'm still a physical media person. If I go and see even if I go and see a film at the cinema now, really, what am I doing? I'm sizing it up to go, I'll buy that.
Unless you know it's going to be a cinematic experience, meaning it's big and bold rather than the smaller, maybe art house ones, where you can just sit closer to your TV. Even so
though, I am just kind of like waiting for the time when I can be at home watching it and re-experiencing it. And it's a shame, and I'm gutted. I feel like that, but it's just like.
I must admit though, the thing with the short window now is that I always liked seeing a film in the cinema, and then like 6 months later or whenever, when it came out on video, it was long enough so when you watched it again, you weren't so clear of what happened.
Yes.
So it was like experiencing it fresh again. The sort of 3 month window, it's still kind of fresh in your mind, so you are watching it. You kind of remember what you saw the last time you saw it at the cinema. So I kind of enjoyed that. I remember quite clearly when I remember seeing Batman Returns at the cinema and then seeing it on video. It was just enough time that I could, go back and watch that and feel like I was watching it for the first time again.
Sometimes I'll get things and my girlfriend will go, "But we just watched that at the cinema." And I'm like, "Yeah, but, now I've got..." And she's just like, "So when are you going to watch it again?" "Oh, I don't know. 6 months." I tell you what, one I did watch instantly the moment I brought it, even though I just seen it in a while, was Fallout, Mission Impossible Fallout.
Oh, well, yeah, can't blame you there.
Yeah. But very few of them are like rush out. I've got to get this. I've got to get this, and then it will just sit there.
Great,
and it's
great.
because it's like you say, there isn't enough time between.
A great Christopher McQuarrie commentary on there as well. But anyway, the other thing about the Blu-ray release of this and the 4K release that's coming up though is there is going to be a 30-minute longer version of this film because. Obviously, we've mentioned
just on the 4K.
Well,
or on the Blu-ray
on the Blu-ray, because we've mentioned obviously Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, but obviously the three directors as well, which is Bob Perschetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rotham. Yeah.
Well read, Keith. Well read.
And but you know they need crediting, don't they? But I saw an interview with these guys, and they were saying that. There was a lot of stuff they had to take out, and one of the things was like a sort of ticking bomb plot. Because what happened was originally they had more multiverse Spider-Men in it, and they had a Australian Spider-Man
to represent the Spider-Woman in there as well.
Spider People. Yes. There you go. Yeah. But they had an Australian Spider-Man. Okay. And you know the glitching that all the characters did. Well, apparently they had this. He was quite an amusing character. G'day, really. Animated and fun character. And what happens?
I think I saw that in the trailer.
Well, he glitches and dies.
Okay.
And the thing is, because he's from Australia, it's 24 hours ahead, and as a result, they realise that they need to solve the whole story within 24 hours and they're all going to die. So it was like this sort of ticking clock aspect to it, but they decided to take the entire subplot of that out for pacing. And they were also saying about laughs as well, like they were trying to make the bit when he talks about when they all have their bit and they talk about in your case it was your uncle, in my case it was my Uncle Ben, and they go through and Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir says it was my Uncle Benjamin, and then Spider-Ham has something as well. There were more jokes in there, but they took them out because it made the scene less emotional. Yeah, because there was laughs in there.
Scene,
So again, we're probably going to get alternate scenes as well on this.
Do you know that? So they put it. Will this go on the extrovert, the long version? Will that go in as a finished version?
Yes, from what I understand, it's because that'll be 28 minutes longer version.
We are perpetually promised. Anytime there's an Avengers movie, invariably someone puts online the rumor, they're going to release a director's cut of this when it comes out of Blu-ray, and you never bloody get one. Disney do not do director's cuts.
No,
they do not give a monkeys.
No. It's like everybody wants to see the first cut of Rogue One, and you'll then never. Disney will never release that.
Could I just ask why you'd want to see an alternative to a story which has been told succinctly and brilliantly into one to which you are fans of?
Well, because there's such a...
That's a really good...
Well, because we hear all the stories, the rumours about what happened. And, there's part of you that's curious to know, well, what was it about the first cut they went, we've got to go back and change all this?
What if it was Bobbins?
Oh, it probably is Bobbins. It probably is Bobbins.
To translate being rubbish.
Are you thinking about the American market here? Going, what does Bobbins mean? But I mean,
we may have some listeners from Oriental climes or others where English is their second language. So.
Welsh is the third.
Diolch yn fawr, Paul. Oedd hwnna'n gwych.
I didn't know you spoke Elvish.
It's like everybody wants to see the Snyder cut of Justice League.
Yes.
Because they want to know, well, what was so bad about it that they had to go back and get another director to come back and reshoot it.
But Keith has generously bought me Superman 2, and it has the two versions. It
Oh, the Donner
actually has
cut.
the original cinematic release, and then the Donner cut. I can see why that is excellent to watch, because it was the original director, and he had a vision, and for whatever internal politics within the studio, they recut, etc. So I get that, but the seeing of a story done differently that isn't an adaptation, because adaptation being from a comic, as we're talking now, to a movie,
Great.
etc.
Do you want to know why a lot of Superman 2 was reshot? I quickly can tell you, because the director who took over from Richard Donner, for him to get a full credit, he had to shoot more material.
You've got to do a third of it, isn't it, or something, in order
so
to get
that's why they
credit.
Because you I'm not sure if it's the same with the likes of I know there was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
But then there were again internal politics there and other things which.
Well, that's more external politics.
Yeah, absolutely. But there wasn't a completed film there, so I never want to go back and see anything that was Singer's cut, because it probably was in the movie anyway. No, I'm just curious as all that.
I don't know. I think the fact that there's something like that is out there, and people are curious to know. I mean, it's why is it we can't see the original cut of Star Wars? Why is it we've stuck now with the special editions?
I'll be honest.
Can I ask you something? Like, are you a music fan? Like, do you buy like certain bands or? Yeah,
I've got an eclectic mix.
Okay,
so I'm stuck to one band or one genre.
So if you're a Stones fan, there'll be a market for bootlegs of Stones demos, or so. I don't see it being
if I hear one, I'll obviously form an opinion and enjoy accordingly, subjectively. But I won't actually go out there and seek. And again, it's a curious question, because. I've never been one to hunt out different types of telling to the same movie. The music the same. I listen to the band do this. I love to go see bands do live gigs and do something different. That's great, but that's not why I go see them live. Yeah, I'm there to throw my pants up on the stage, with my phone number on there, and that's just to the Welsh male voice choirs.
I think you should stop here, Graham.
Anyway, back to Spider-Verse.
I think that there is an interest in. There is so there is something that says something about the obsessive mindset of film geeks, like the people in this room.
Yeah,
I include myself in that. Yeah, I mean, if I know another version of a film exists, I've got to get it. I've got to know.
It was just the why to that, because it's fascinating that Spider-Verse to come out with an extra 30 minutes. I guess
apparently I hope it does now. Otherwise, this is going to be irrelevant. But no.
All in all, this was an excellent film. And at the beginning of this podcast, the four of us did say that we really did enjoy it.
Yes.
Granted, I said niggles. I haven't got to niggle number 2 yet, but I'm sure that there's time.
Let's...
But no. The fact is that we thoroughly enjoyed this, and I thought it was the emotion of it, the pace of it, and the length of it. I agree with you, Keith, from what you said earlier, is that it did fly by. And this wasn't just the action scenes. I'm talking the middle dramatic scenes as well. I know that my wife actually thoroughly enjoyed them and it zipped along. She felt, as I did, niggle number 2, was that some of the action sequences were actually a bit almost too rushed. That there was too much going on. That you really... or it was a bit too silly. The train scene being pulled from the graveyard when Peter B. Parker meets Miles.
The bit they had at the end of Venom. Yeah.
Oh right, that bit there. What was I thought a bit too rushed or so, but ultimately, still the dramatic scenes had enough drama. The pacing I thought was just right. So to watch all these extra scenes slot in and. Yeah, I'm not convinced.
Well, I just quickly looked it up the Blu-ray. there's alternative scenes with it on the Blu-ray, but it's not cut into the film.
How is it
Right.
not?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
So
I
they're
thought it was.
Look how disappointed we are.
this is what I'm getting from.
Shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got.
Because I've got where is it?
So that's an extension to the story they're telling, which
Yeah.
I,
an
I can
extended
understand
cut
it.
called Universe
Alternate
cut.
universe
cut.
mode. Discover alternate scenes, plot lines, characters, and more with the filmmakers as your
Ah,
guides.
okay.
So they're cut.
So you're
scenes.
still
With
getting
a
the
cameo from
initial
Tom
release.
Cruise and James Cameron, apparently.
What?
Cameos from Tom Cruise and
No.
James Cameron. Yes, apparently so. But
Seriously?
yeah,
Who
so they
was?
themselves.
Those- Oh.
Oh right. Oh no, not
Can-
not
but yeah,
not
I-
Spider
Yeah,
Cruise.
Though, yeah. Though I just want to say though that the idea. I mean, yes, it'd be wonderful to see all the scenes cut back in, but as the film stands now,
It
I
works.
think it really works very
No, I
well.
agree.
And they did the right thing cutting these things out, because as much as it's the idea of the ticking clock was already there. They didn't need to have another character to come in and let the people know more I don't know, on the nose that that they had this certain amount of time. We knew that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It-
No,
it- yeah.
I mean, one of the things I think's really so beautiful about this film as well is you've got a scene, like the scene in Miles's dorm room, where 1 minute you've got Peter Porker saying, "Do animals talk in your universe? Because I don't want to freak him out." In the roommate
Yes.
faints and everything, and then literally minutes later, you've got that wonderful scene where Miles is tied to the chair and gagged, and his dad comes outside the room and can see his shadow there, and sort of says to him about feeling, sorry and all this sort of thing. And Peter at that point can't answer him. And sorry, I said Miles. I keep saying Peter. Miles can't answer him.
Yeah.
And I just think that the film, in terms of being balanced, it just got it all right. So you had these great. I mean, in terms of action scenes, I love the scene where they go into the laboratory where Doc Ock is,
Yes.
and that they have to steal the processor of the
But the
machine.
nice thing about that is because at that point when you go into that scene, you don't realise that's Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And also it's Peter and Miles working together with
yeah.
one another,
And-
and that whole thing even about the grabbing a bagel. And,
That is my favourite. I was just about to
when,
say
when
that,
he throws
that
it,
is the
it
favourite.
says bagel.
Bagel.
When it actually hits the guy, it says bagel, which I think is brilliant.
I love that one.
Yeah, one of the guys goes, "He's stealing a bagel."
Is that-
Yeah.
Look, I mean, to go back to what Graham was saying about your niggle number 2 being that some of the action seemed like there was too much going on. I
No.
think that is just the nature of animation. Really, it's just to bombard because, as you say, primarily aimed at children, and therefore they've got to keep them.
I must admit, I
Occupied
don't agree with that, Niggle.
Do you not?
No, because everything, you can tell what's going on. There was never one point where I was like, what the hell's going on? There's not a...
I haven't seen it since Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So, I can't.
There wasn't
you know.
an action scene in it which reminded me of Batman Begins. The scene where Batman's fighting what's the clan called?
Oh, the League of Shadows.
Yeah. So he's fighting the League of Shadows, and we've got the horror gas going over them, the scare gas, and so you've got all the Arkham Asylum prisoners who have escaped. They're all fighting, and there's this one scene where literally you cannot tell who's hitting who because it's all close up, and then Batman is whisked away by the train. There is never a scene in Spider-Man that is like that. That's my yardstick for any kind of action scene where you can tell where every character is, who they're fighting.
Can I say again? I think that is a byproduct of animation. because I think with all animation you can clearly tell what's going on because it has to be.
But I'm saying the way the action is staged is really well. I mean. It's not like a Michael Bay film where it's just like, there's a bit going here and a bit going there and, more explosions and it's just cut all over the place. I think it's the action scenes are really well done.
Yeah. Maybe I'm coming at it also at an angle where I was so thoroughly enjoying the non-action scenes or the more thrilling scenes rather than going to full high octane action, that maybe my mindset was, guys, I know this is a Spider-Man story and you need the action there, but actually some of the better ones in comics and then the scenes in this movie were the ones where I was so pulled into the story of the characters, especially, and what was happening to Miles, and again, back to the point about loser Peter Parker, that when an action sequence happened, especially at the end there, to me it was a lot of crash bang wallop all over again. There was that bombardment there. It didn't detract from the fact that I still enjoyed this movie. But I'll be honest, that's the type of thing, if I've seen it, if I try and beat Keith, and by 2025 I've seen it 101 times to Keith's 89 times, I bet it will happen, Niles, that I will actually fast forward through or skip the action sequences.
Oh, okay.
Because I genuinely was pulled in and I was rooting for Miles. I thought he was his character.
But the thing is, there's character development within those action scenes. I mean, the thing is that every Spider-Man has to lose their uncle. This is they all lost their uncle.
Spider-Gwen lost
Peter Parker. Okay, all right. Well, most of them lost their uncle. Yeah, most of them lost their. And with Miles, it was kind of good because his uncle was a bad guy.
Yeah,
which actually is big shock.
Is from the comics.
Oh, okay.
His uncle is a character called the Prowler.
Yeah.
She is in this.
Who's like he's like a super, not a super criminal, but
no, he seems to have a super suit, doesn't he? Yeah.
And he goads Miles seemingly into killing him, but Miles then finds out that in fact he didn't kill him, which I can't remember how it went in this.
In this, it was the Kingpin killed him.
Yeah.
He was like, you've got Spider-Man, one of the Spider-Men, kill him, and he couldn't because he knew it was Miles.
And interesting enough, the things, there are a lot of parallels between the Peter Parker story throughout history in the Spider-Man books and the Miles Morales story as told in those 3 big volumes. So, you have the uncle that teaches Peter valuable life lessons, except obviously with Miles, it's as you say, he's a criminal.
He teaches him some street smarts,
doesn't he? And you have the parents as well, which is a very interesting thing to do because obviously, Miles' parents are alive, whereas Peter's are not. But I don't know if you guys know this from the Spider-Man comics. At one point, there was a storyline. I don't know if it's ever been retconned, where Peter Parker's parents were revealed to be spies.
Oh, Amazing Spider-Man 2, they were going for that. But
they were
trying that, but it didn't really work.
But in Ultimate Spider-Man, which is the Bendis comics pre-Miles Morales, Peter does discover some of his dad's work.
Yeah, which is
his secret science work, which leads into the clone.
Right. Oh, okay.
Spider clone one. So he was working, but I can't ever remember Peter Parker's mother though, but it was definitely his dad, and he discovers his dad's work and tries to continue that. Then
they were trying to do that with the Andrew Garfield films.
But then what's the parallel here then?
So Miles Morales, at one stage, first his dad reveals to him that at one stage he'd been in jail, which Miles never knew about his dad. But then he also finds out that his dad worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. Which they actually managed to play out a lot of parallels between Peter Parker and Miles quite successfully in quite an interesting and stylish way. I don't wish they'd done it here because I don't think there would have been room for it.
I think the parents in this film was one of the strongest aspects.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought the relationship, you know, with both the dad and the mum in this was really worked. And I mean, back to the sort of action thing as well. The other thing that I was surprised works so well in this with the action was the fact that you had kind of the mixture of animation styles.
Yes.
You know, you had the sort of anime type character and there was, we said, the sort of Looney Tunes type and the traditional animation and all this. But then you also had all those sort of splash page type shots. And I just sort of thought, I mean, I'll be honest, in the live action films, as you were saying, Graham, about how you kind of, you know, switch off slightly. I do find that in a lot of, I mean, there are exceptions like the first Avengers movie. I think the action is superbly done, but there are a lot of those type of films where it does become a little bit sort of CG overload, and I kind of care less about those bits than the character bits.
Well, I mean, good action should always drive character, shouldn't it? It should be character development. I mean, the thing with Spider-Man into Spider-Verse is that, you know, especially with Miles Morales, is that he's learning how to become Spider-Man. You know, and usually within these action sequences, you know, we learn different aspects of what his powers are through these action sequences. You know, the fact that he can, you know, do like electrocution, and, you know, turn invisible, all that kind of stuff. You know, I think of like Neo in the Matrix. I mean, the action sequences in that, they always sort of was driving him, you know, becoming the one. That's why the first one works so well. Once he becomes the one, it's not so exciting because the threat's gone.
Yeah,
because, you know, he is Superman.
Yeah, once you're God, what do you do?
You go and get a spaceship. Sorry, just to start.
Space Jesus.
Yes.
But I mean,
So we're just tying back to a previous podcast, of course, for you.
But I mean, the thing is, as well, is that throughout most of the film, you feel that you know, Miles Morales is in danger. That you know, there is a good chance that he is not going to survive this. There's this whole, and beautifully done as well within the story and doing the character, is the whole idea of getting up at the end as well. You know, when the other Spider-Men start attacking him, and it's like, can you get up? Can you do this? Can you do that?
Yeah, the parallels are always there to go back to that. From the beginning, he's a reluctant hero through to...
But I mean, the action is all driven through character and story, which I think is
with
a
the
good...
laugh in there as well. He hasn't quite figured this out yet. But, you know, when there's all the things that he's supposed to be able to do but can't quite do. And I always thought that was good. But also, I mean, there is a dark element to this film. I mean, right at the beginning with the death of Peter Parker. Yeah. And, you know, Kingpin killing it. That's actually, I was like, wow, that's not exactly child friendly, is it?
No, but I think that's... but then again, I think death is something that's missing from a lot of children's stories at the moment. Yeah, I mean, the trailer for Star Wars Episode 9 has come out. Yeah. What's one of the lines in the trailer? They're never really gone. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole Red Letter Media video about this where they literally take every character that's killed in the Star Wars trilogy, and you just hear Plinkett go, "Well, they're not really gone." For every bloody Star Wars character or person who gets killed in, you know, I mean, it would be a lot longer if it's
in sci-fi.
But no, he dies in films or the threat of death. I mean, we talk about children's films back in the 80s where death was a major thing. Come on, I mean, The Never-Ending Story, the horse dies. Isn't that not the saddest thing? Yeah. But children are not being taught about these things. It's like a lot of the films we see now is don't bother doing anything because you're good already. You know, Is that not the lesson that is being taught to children right now?
Wow.
Don't learn anything. Don't try and because you're perfect already.
I worry about old man rant coming up.
Yeah.
I worry now about the people who are sort of 10 or 20 years younger than me, of which there are many. Nearly everyone I know, in fact.
And there's more coming.
Because I think what we're kind of heading into is everyone seems to want a world without adversity, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I'd be careful of that, because when the next big thing comes along, whatever the next big thing that's going to be
As in
dangerous to culture,
climate change, revolution,
or dangerous to you personally, or dangerous to your life personally. And I'm not talking about in a filmic way, but just, in general, there's always something that's going to endanger your well-being, or somewhere along the line. You're maybe not going to be ready to face that. And because I think that what we're building towards now is a much more neutral. They say the world is statistically getting safer. Statistically, whether or not that's an actuality, I'm yet.
So you guys saying then? Shall I read between the lines and say that Disney is making us all safe? So it's actually Disney's fault because they're buying it all.
No. But I think
in
just generally,
the culture is becoming a lot more.
Well, I mean,
bland.
Bubble wrapping children.
Well, look, let's
I think we're bubble wrapping adults.
Yeah.
It's even worse now. I think we're bubble wrapping adults.
Let's take Spider-Man
really
into the Spider-Verse. You have a character who, he's bitten by a spider. He has to learn to become Spider-Man. He has to believe he's Spider-Man. Take Rey out of Star Wars. She's perfect. She's never left the planet, but she can fly the Millennium Falcon. She meets Han Solo for 5 minutes. He's the father figure she never had. She gets told about the Force. She's a full-fledged Jedi who can do mind tricks. It's so easy. It just comes naturally. Nothing is earned. In Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse, Miles Morales earns being Spider-Man.
Which is why we care.
Yeah.
And then another... Go on.
Sorry, can I say something about where Rey is concerned as a character? The Millennium Falcon thing I can't argue with. Yes, she can fly the Falcon somehow. But that gave us one of the more exhilarating moments in that film.
The IMAX scene.
Yeah.
That whole Falcon bit. But yes.
Yes, she's a Jedi that, almost instantly a Jedi that can do mind tricks, as you say, but you're constantly under threat of her moving over to the dark side. I think in the second movie.
Well, I mean, they kind of hinted at that, but I think that's it's a no. I mean, it'd be brilliant in episode 9 if they went actually the bad guys win. She turns to the dark side, but that's not going to happen because Disney and Disney loves safe.
The father figure almost instantly gets taken away from her. Within the space of film.
She known him for 5 minutes.
I know, but I'm just saying that it isn't without adversity. But I get.
But there's no adversity to the character. I mean, there's you have a villain. I mean, that was the thing that did make me laugh. I mean, the first time I saw Force Awakens, and we'll get back to Spider-Man.
I was going to say, this is Spider-Man into the Star Wars universe.
But come on, the bit when the lightsaber gets pulled from the snow when Ben Solo's trying to pull it.
Yeah.
I always thought that was going to be Luke Skywalker. Who would be more powerful than a Sith too? And so when it was Rey, it was a bit, you're like, oh, okay. It's like, I closed my eyes and suddenly the Force is with me. I mean, I don't know why I keep picking on these films. I think it's just the more I think about them, the more it kind of grates me. The latest trilogy, but
I'm hoping that by the time we get to the end, that will all have meaning somewhere.
Yeah, but that's why I love a film like this.
Yeah, okay.
When they do that kind of story really well, And that's why I really liked this film. That's why it was kind of like a surprise and how it just sort of came from underneath the radar. Cause...
To bring back in with the Lord and Miller angle here, the Millennium Falcon and some of the characters were actually in the Lego movie, and that was an animation to which I went to see with my daughter. And
Batman was in that film as well.
Just talk about dark or black and very, very dark grey.
Yeah.
But there was adversity there. There was adversity in Lego Movie 2, Lord and Miller again. There is there. I get your point, I guess, but there's only so much death, mayhem, blood, gore you can actually show to a 7-year-old.
I know, but there's not that really much blood and gore. Yeah. I mean, so everything in balance. But I mean,
as far as media is concerned, though, there are so many stories out there. Written, especially Charlotte's Web being one of the most wonderful ones, which does actually deal with death, but in a more subtle way. Obviously, Charlotte at the end, but there is that. But I don't know. I guess I haven't put enough thought into it. There should be a lot more. I showed my daughter. Actually, we had a movie night together, and she picked E.T. So we had it on DVD, and we watched it. And
amazing. That
one there, when I first saw it, first movie I saw in the cinema, made me blub like a lunatic. My mother had to take me out to the cinema. There was that. But then she watched it, and I guess
do you think a film like E.T. will be made today? And would that scene be in it?
Well, E.T. comes back to life. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, I know, but he
does. But it was still an emotional wrench for me more than it was for my daughter.
Yeah, the audience still goes through that because the first time you see it, you don't know he's going to come back.
Very true.
You saw it on that 80s marathon night, and I loved it. I was like,
it's great. I watched that for the first time. My girlfriend had never seen it, and we started doing this sort of Saturday night movies thing because it was the one night where I could because we work later on a Sunday at the shop, so I was kind of like, we start later in the day, so I was like, okay, Saturdays I've got them off, let's start watching a movie, one movie a week, and E.T. was the first one she did. She absolutely loved it. But I think even she knew, she was just like, he's going to be alive again, isn't he? And I'm like, well, just watch it, wait.
But on that, I actually I always wanted to check the quality of the movie of Spider-Verse when I got it streaming from Amazon, and my daughter actually watched. First of all, I thought, we're safe here. This is pre Peter Parker being killed by Wilson Fisk. And what surprised me, I was talking to my wife yesterday about it, is that my daughter actually was laughing at all the repartee between Miles and his dad. And I was like, wow, this is surprising because Miles is 13. It's a teenage movie. It's from a teenage perspective.
And how old is your kid, sorry?
8 years old. She's a smart year old, just like her dad, who's still 8. And so she was actually chuckling away, and I thought, how are you getting this? So maybe they're not being softened up. Maybe they are. There's so much information now that not even us as parents can block or fund that. She was actually getting this, and I'm the one who stopped us going further because I knew what scene was coming. I knew it was going to be a lot more violent.
That stuff with Miles and his father. I mean, it's so well done, but it's done from a point of view that I think any of us can relate to. A point in our life. I know your daughter's 8 years old, but I think even at 8 years old, they can kind of relate to that kind of thing where mum and dad are being a bit embarrassing to me. Yeah. I mean, come on, how many times you must have embarrassed your kid?
Daily.
There you go. Yeah. So I think she gets it.
Deliberately.
There you go. I think she gets that. That scene talks to everybody who's ever been embarrassed by their parents.
As you say, it's unusual to see characters die and actually die in movies now. And it's especially odd to see a character in a movie for children being murdered by another character on purpose, not by accident. Normally they'll die in accidents or someone will accidentally but this is someone who is purposely kind of targeted and you know.
Well, this is the thing with Kingpin. I mean, again, you understand his motivation. The whole reason why he's trying to break into the parallel universe is because his wife and daughter, wife and son,
that's right,
died.
Mm-hmm.
But they died as a result of seeing what he really was.
Yeah.
I imagine up to that point, they just thought he was a businessman, loving father.
with really big shoulders.
Yeah, he was a big guy. To see him fighting with Spider-Man, saw kind of what the monster he was. And he's been living with that guilt, since, and he wants to bring him back. And again, that's a motivation that most people can connect to, which with a lot of villains these days, you don't. Well, I mean, TV's doing it a lot better, where you have the villain that you can understand where they're coming from. I mean, Thanos, you kind of understood his point of view. You didn't agree with it, but he had a point of view, and he was willing to take it to the end.
Do you think that's a byproduct of people just wanting to make villains more complex and more interesting, or do you think that in a way it's kind of softening up? Because I mean,
I don't know.
There's not many people who are outright evil.
No, that's true. And the best knowing from what the actor from my own film said, that when he played the villain in my film, he didn't see him as the villain.
No.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
No.
I mean, it's just someone with a different point of view.
But for dramatic purposes, if you have a protagonist, you need an antagonist. And the antagonist should be somebody who's a lot more powerful than the protagonist. Now, some films, some stories, you can get away with the guy being a bad guy for being the sake of a bad guy. Maybe he enjoys it, But it is, I think it just elevates the story if you can relate to the villain. Or you can see that they have a certain point of view, and then just not being bad for the sake of it.
I agree with that, especially with talking about Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, where Bendis, again, Michael Bendis, he has always written him brilliantly evil and really drawn the even Frank Miller did the same with Fisk and Daredevil.
Yeah, it was amazing.
In his run, there is evil there. So having an evil guy, but then this time he wasn't. He still was evil, but he was still selfish, and he wanted to bring back his family. Nice touch that in a parallel universe they get to see him in the same light.
Right, yeah.
Again, nearly at this point, obviously nearly killing Spider-Man. But Fisk has always been there. He was a bit of a, I think right at the beginning when Fisk was being written, or Kingpin was, he was just the other villain. But then again, you had to practically have a villain every issue just to drive the story as well. But over the years, when you've had the longer running story arcs, you've done it so brilliantly well done here again, that you have him killing a Spider-Man because he has that power. He has he has that will to do with it.
Yeah, well, he did it out of rage. Yeah. I mean, because Peter Parker says to him, "I know why you're doing this. You can't bring him back," and that enrages him, and ultimately leads to his death.
But Fisk is capable of murdering. That's the point there.
Yeah.
Well, you want a villain who you feel is a threat at the end of the day as well. You got to feel that the main character is going up against something that's bigger than him, and ultimately he could lose his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel that in this. I mean, definitely. The stakes are very high, even without the ticking clock thing that we talked about. And the other thing that's so good about this is just how sort of multi-layered all of it is. Like even little visual things, like the fact that Miles' dad, the patches on his uniform and on the car say PDNY, not NYPD. Instantly saying that we're in a slightly skewed, a slightly different universe here. And I mean, I love the fact as well that when we go to original Peter Parker's wonderful sort of layer that he's got below his Aunt May's, shed and whatever. There's so many references even to the video game Spider-Man. You see the costume of, and you see all those things. It's amazing.
That perfectly brings us on to niggle number 3.
Oh, go on then.
Okay.
And are you pleased to hear the final one? Why, apart from just maybe placating some fans, would a Peter Parker have 20 different Spider-Man costumes unless he's actually got a costume shop, or Aunt May is actually
and a Spider-Mobile and
I get it's a different universe. I get that. So, but then I look at it and go, okay, there's a cape there. Okay, we've got a nice little gag. It's not quite fit. It's jarring with me. It's not quite fitting with my interpretation of this universe. Yes, we've got blonde Peter Parker. He's supposed to be this angel, etc. But then, the buggies there. Oh, I had one of them when I was a kid. I was thinking to myself, oh, yeah, it's part of the universe.
Yeah,
multiverse. But then my wife's going, well, okay, yeah, but what? Why does he have one of them? Then we look at all the costumes. Why are all the costumes there? That there is a question that was left unanswered and wasn't. I was just there almost for comic relief when a movie that had so much comedy in it.
Merchandising.
Okay, that's a cynical answer, but actually, yes, you could 100% be right. So that one just didn't fit where we were. Thankfully, that scene is next.
I must admit, the thing that actually I think was more niggly about that scene than all the costumes was, I think this is the first Aunt May who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Oh, until
well, from my knowledge.
Yeah. No, because J. Michael Straczynski's run, the big thing that he did was that Aunt May finds out that Peter is Spider-Man.
Right.
And Bendis further on in Ultimate when we've got we're going to hundreds, I think, of the issues. Yeah. She eventually does find out.
And he also, in the process of telling her, I'm Spider-Man, also says, look, I think I'm responsible for Uncle Ben's death. And she is initially very angry about it. And one of the things she has to do is kind of work on forgiving him for his his role in that. So there is an element of
okay. Well, in
like
the comic
it does,
books,
It
I
does
thought
exist.
that might have been the case.
And I'm pretty sure it's probably been done even before those two examples that we gave Graham. Is like,
but I mean, film wise, film-wise, Aunt May's kind of, not known about. I mean, I know. In the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans that Peter Parker did say that he was responsible for Uncle Ben's death, but she still didn't know he was Spider-Man.
Well, and also now you're going to have the Aunt May that knows in
in the MCU,
not Far From Home.
Far From Home.
Oh, it is Far From Home.
Yeah, at the end of Homecoming. Yeah.
And
but
it's
isn't
very
he
clear.
dead?
Is he? Isn't he?
Did he die?
Well, we don't know when that movie's set yet.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're not.
So the sort of the multiverse, the multi-costumes then left maybe for Blu-ray. Maybe
I think that, I mean, canonically in the comics, he would have had more than one costume. Like, obviously, you have the whole black suit era, the symbiote, Spider-Man, all that kind of stuff. And then later on, I mean, at one point, I think he buys a costume from a costume shop because he's got no other choice. There's the very famous issue of Spider-Man where his costume gets destroyed and he he has to go to the Fantastic Four, and they give him a Fantastic Four uniform and a paper bag. And slap a Kickley sign on his back.
What's sort of interesting, I think, about that, and I do actually 100% appreciate what you're saying about the whole thing. It's weird because you've got, it's kind of changed it from Spider-Man or Peter Parker being the guy that can't make ends meet, that's working as a photographer in the Daily Bugle and trying to pass his exams and look after his aunt and all this sort of stuff, and that version in the multiverse and the Spider-Verse there paints him as more the sort of Bruce Wayne type guy that's got a layer with vehicles and equipment and multi-suits.
So again, there is a later thing that happens in the Dan Slott comics where, in what I think like the worldwide era, as they called it, where he is running a global. Yeah,
you have that with Spider-Man Deadpool, where he runs Park Industries or whatever, and he's still the geek then. Yeah, he still makes a mess of hash of things. And his first press conference, he's got this wonderful new toy. And he spills ketchup over himself, so he has to wear two ties and the press only, focusing on the fact he's wearing two ties and this gizmo. But even though he was multi-billionaire or trying to be, he was still the geek. Yeah. So I get
Queen,
having exactly that. Having Mr. Perfect Peter Parker, I get it, but. Yeah, anyway.
I think
there is part of me that kind of, and I'm not being dismissive of what you're saying, but there is part of me that kind of doesn't care.
Yeah, it was a nice bit of fan service. That's what I thought it was. It's like, oh look, there's these different Spider-Man costumes that have probably appeared in different comic books and cartoons and stuff. So for that was like... and the only other thing it served was the fact that that Miles Morales could use one of the costumes and turn it into his own.
Yeah, it was there because the plot needed it.
In fact, something that we were talking about earlier, that we sort of got off the topic of. Surprise. But we were sort of saying that when they were telling the very well put together little origins, and like the first one kind of implied, like the Tobey Maguire type Spider-Man with some of those scenes. But then I think the other two times they do it, one of them they do reference the Andrew Garfield stuff with him like sat on his mobile phone on the corner of the skyscraper and stuff. And
no, isn't that the... Oh no, it is the Andrew Garfield. They also do that thing in Homecoming.
Yes, and then they have the sort of reference to Tom Holland. I think they at some point they reference each of the live action ones as well.
Because but that's kind of diegetic to the story though, isn't it? Because it's like these are different versions.
Yes.
Well, this is a question. So is Spider-Gwen and the Spider-Noir and the anime Spider-Man, are they inventions of this film, or are they were characters from comic books before?
No. So
question.
I might be misremembering.
Spider-Man Noir is in existence.
Yeah.
The one I've read is not the funny Nick Cage one. The one that drinks whatever and beats up Nazis. Fighting Nazis.
Yeah.
Burns a match just so I can feel something. Nuts.
But it's a lot of a darker, more violent Spider-Man Noir. So from what I know, and I could be corrected on this, where this one did. I think this one seemed to me, we can research it now if need be, was the only real invention, as in to make it him like that. But the Penny Parker and the Spider-Gwen, they are already in existence.
Oh, okay.
Spider-Ham is saying.
Spider-Ham, I think, is from was largely a joke in the 70s.
Yeah.
Wasn't he on the back of the comics?
Yeah, it's like a Don Heck thing. I want to say Don Heck, but I could be
definitely
wrong.
with the comics there.
Yeah. Penny Parker, the spider, as it's called.
And then the
Is from Spider-Verse.
21.99 or whatever it is.
$20.99, yeah.
Yeah.
The one right at the end.
Oh,
of the
I mean, that was a
definitely-
nice callback because I remember when that came out. I remember the first issue was like a recreation of is it Amazing Spider-Man #1, where he's in this spider. He's sort of in the web, but it's the new spider suit.
Mm-hmm.
But and also throwing him into the 1970s cartoon.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, there were
Or
so
60s
many
cartoon,
good
yeah.
things. Like, I love the fact that Spider-Man Noir, has the Rubik's Cube,
Cube,
thing
yeah.
that he can't, get his head around, and all
Oh,
that.
and
That-
just
because it's
also
colour-
in the end credits where it's like the amazing color brick.
yeah, exactly. And also the fact that I like the fact that Spider-Ham says something at the end like, "That's all, folks,"
And
he
they go,
"Am
"Can
I
he-"
even legally allowed to say
I
that?"
thought the other
Something.
it's the other characters who say,
Yes.
"Is he legally allowed to say
I
that?"
just think that's brilliant.
But on the noir, if anybody is interested in reading the Marvel Noir series, I'd recommend the X-Men story on that one. It is the best. The least violent as well. I think the Spider Noir one was way too violent for me. It was too nasty.
Although-
it was too far removed from what I know we were talking about Wilson Fisk killing, but actually it's never been so sharply just horrible. It didn't flow.
The biggest
for me.
joke for the Marvel Noir stuff, though, was that they also did Daredevil Noir. And it's just
Yes.
like, what? Like, is that something that needed noiring
It's
up?
actually Punisher
Anymore?
Punisher
Yeah.
Noir.
Was it really?
Yeah, as well, yeah.
Really? What was the point of that?
Punisher's black and white suit anyway.
Yeah.
But Daredevil, it's like
It
it's supposed
was
to be
entirely,
red, right?
yeah. Now, they might have been good. I don't know. Those I didn't read. But also, I do need to point out that the noir stuff is not, as far as I know, is not currently available in physical form. You might be able to track it down in back issues, but yeah, because Marvel are not very good at keeping things in print. Well, they are, but when they've got a movie out.
No.
But
Would you know of a comic shop, perchance?
Yeah.
Well, you could come
actually
to
find-
Orbital and search it, but I genuinely don't know that we've got any of the noir stuff in back issue form even at the moment. Because you do get a lot of speculation in comics. I'm sure some very smart people snaps that stuff up as soon as it was announced, and are now making money on eBay for it. But Marvel have not seen fit to bring the noir stuff out, as far as I know, again in a long time. Like, it's been a long while since that stuff's been out. But maybe in time for the Blu-ray release.
Who knows? I mean, here's the thing. For me, I think this is like one of those sort of near perfect movies, right?
Okay.
But and I don't say that often about things or lightly, but would we want to see another one of these films? Would we want a sequel?
Yeah,
or
well,
a spin-off?
they've kind of set up for a sequel, and especially with the after credit sequence,
Yep.
because the Spider-Man of the future has developed a machine that can they call it not a gizmo.
One of them,
A
yes.
gizmo, yeah.
No, it's not what they call it.
Goober.
A goober.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
designed a goober that will let him go to parallel universes without the sort of falling apart. And I think that I believe the rumor mill is that if they do a sequel, that will come into play.
Okay.
And I'm one who says leave well alone. I'm happy
Yeah.
with this one.
Yeah, I mean,
Generally
I-
am, but having another one,
One-
don't get me wrong, it could be even better again. But if anything were to stop Lord and Miller decide to go off elsewhere and continue with Lego movies or whatever, then yeah, I would be tremendously happy with this one. And go back to it over and over again. Not just to beat Eyles with his current record of 6 times he's seen it. I've got a lot of catching up to do with my 2.
Why has he watched it in the middle of this podcast?
No wonder it's taken so long.
Yeah, so no, but in all seriousness. I would definitely revisit this movie and enjoy it over and over again. I know that, but if it's a one-off, then yeah, I'd be pleased for that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be quite interested to see a sequel. I'd like to see these characters again. I really enjoyed this film, but if they decide not to do a sequel, then I'd be happy too. Just because, you know, sometimes it's best to leave well alone. But the thing is, though, there's the possibility of, you know, bringing in more Spider-Men or Spider-People.
And
with the multiverse, what it
in
is.
the Spider-Verse, it's humongous. I've only seen snippets of.
I'm not sure if Marvel has a multiverse at the moment.
It's the Spider-Verse, isn't it? With
They don't like.
many.
They don't. I don't think they have a because I think one of the things that Secret Wars did was crush everything that back down to the 616. So I don't know if they have a.
So this is more of a DC thing, is it?
The multiverse is DC, yeah.
Right.
But the Marvel universe
And Star Trek and Terminator.
Yeah,
But
but I suspect that if we ever discover actual proper parallel universes in real life, they're going to be really boring. Everyone's going to be exactly the bloody same. I don't know, sequels or not. I think it's funny you mentioned The Matrix earlier. I kind of agree with Graham on this because The Matrix is a film that didn't need a sequel.
yeah, I agree.
Well,
And
we wanted
happy.
wanted sequels, but then what we saw, we were
We've actually done a whole podcast on this, haven't we? Where we discussed.
I didn't. I was perfectly
The
happy
original
at the
movie
end
was
of The
perfect.
Matrix.
Yeah. I agree.
But I mean, I was at the time very happy that they were doing sequels, and you know, because
I
there
really
was
enjoyed the second one, actually.
there's talk that I remember at the time, once the first Matrix came out, that it was part of a trilogy. I was like, oh, okay, let's see where they're going to go with this. It's just unfortunate where they did go with it.
I think they're masterpieces of design work. I think they're very beautiful to look at, the Matrix films. But yeah,
the thing you can probably guess what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But the thing that let the sequels down is the fact that with the first one you had such a great threat.
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing was everybody who's faced an agent has died.
Yeah.
And so when Neo decides to take on Agent Smith, you go, well, you know,
All
this
200 of them.
Yeah.
No, fuck the sequels. Because I mean that, you know, then he was Super Neo and, you know, God Neo, whatever. You know, he was, you know, untouchable. It would be like, it's like playing a game in God mode. You know, it's literally like nothing can hurt him.
But I think that actually brings up an interesting point, which is the thing that spoils a lot of comics and a lot of like universes and things like that is the universe aspect. Is the moment you start building more and more and more, you're suddenly going to have to ask yourself more questions, and the audience is going to have to ask you more questions, and you're going to have to come up with answers for them. And in fact, again, the Matrix that brings.
Well, you dilute
Yeah.
what's there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the problem with all of these, and this is why I mean to give credit to, you know, Feige and his team and the MCU. They've done it very well, I think, actually, because they've had like a sort of consistent showrunner. For that,
but they've also had how many years Marvel's been around? All that material at their fingertips to come up with this.
With the Matrix, it's like, what was the point in the Matrix where I kind of just went, like, come on, was where
That was the first 5 minutes of the second film?
In the second film, funny enough, or maybe the third, where he stops the Sentinels when they're outside the Matrix.
The end of the second one,
then later on in the third, he goes, like, why do my powers work outside? And the Oracle just goes to him, because they do. And that's basically what she said. You know, the one's always had the power to work. And it's just like, so you're basically saying his powers work because they work. And that's it. And it's just like, no.
That's well written.
It's a question that needs
The
answers.
thing is with Neo is he didn't have multiple copies of the same costume in his basement shed. He didn't
have a Neo buggy.
Yeah.
And a stealth Neo jet because he doesn't need it because he can fly.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I suspect, even though they kind of said, "Oh, this is always meant," because that was another thing that got on my nerves around the time of Matrix. Every film that came out was, well, it's part of a trilogy. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be part of a trilogy?
It's
Can't
like,
make something else that's
new
and interesting.
The other, I loved the summer of '99 because we were all waiting for Phantom Menace. We thought that was the film of the season.
And then
we got The Matrix, we got The Mummy, we got South Park the movie. These films were far better than Phantom Menace. I mean, it was nice because we weren't expecting this. But
shut your fucking face, Uncle Fucker.
Exactly.
So you're saying then, because we're waiting for the Marvel, we're waiting for Star Wars and all the rest, and this one's come out of nowhere as well.
But that's not my point. But this is a good point. But my point being is that the Mummy, The Matrix, all had sequels which were terrible. And, with hindsight, you think should have just left it because The Mummy was a great film. It was very enjoyable, and it wasn't quite what you were expecting. You didn't think it was going to be an Indiana Jones clone.
And imagine if Universal had the common sense to build their dark universe then. Rather than
oh god, yes.
But they weren't into universe building at that time. No. Franchises, interconnecting franchises.
Well, because they were.
Well, it used to be crossovers and spin-offs, really. And now it's become, exactly. Which, interestingly, something I've watched recently, which is part of a cinematic universe, and I have to say, my God, how refreshing!
Confessions of a Window Cleaner.
No, not that one, but although a good universe. No, Shazam.
Yes!
Exclamation
mark.
Well,
now though, not part of an extended universe.
It is. It's part of the DCEU.
It is, but the DCEU is apparently dead. They're now saying that we're not going to go for this type of formula where we try and intermingle everything.
But what I liked about Shazam, I mean, I thought it was just such a breath of fresh air. But it was part... In fact, what they did, what I really liked, they did what the original Jurassic Park did, is they made the merchandise integral to the film.
Yeah, okay.
Because in Shazam, one of the kids wears the T-shirts that some of the ones that I've either owned or currently own, but some of the merchandise now that we have for Superman and Aquaman and Batman and whatever is actually in the film as the merchandise of the actual characters that exist. So that I quite like it when they do that sort of. Bring it in, but no, I thought it was. But it is part of the DCEU, right?
Yeah, well, but they've also come out and said, look, because of how well Aquaman performed.
For me, Shazam was way better than Aquaman.
Yeah, I agree.
Way better.
But because of how well Aquaman performed, being sort of cut free from the shackles of that, and then because of how well Shazam's done, they're just like we're done with this. Really, I think their kind of connected universe will move. And I actually think this is the right thing to do. A lot of their connected stuff will move to the DC Universe platform, the TV shows. Although they've already said Doom Patrol.
The Belantes, the ones on Netflix.
Yeah, the new stuff that's good. Well, it's from a platform that DC have done in the US. It's not available here, of course, because we're obviously a third world country. We don't need entertainment platforms. They've done a thing called DC Universe, which is a Netflix for comics and for DC's own shows, and they're making brand new content just for this platform. Titans was the first.
Oh, okay, Titans.
Doom Patrol, which grew out of Titans, was the second. Swamp Thing is the next one.
Right, and these are nothing. And these are nothing to do with the CW Berlanti DC stuff.
Although it's expected, I think, that eventually they'll find a way to,
They'll find a way. like life, it'll find a way.
Sorry.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
let's wrap up. What are your guys' final thoughts about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Is there anything else you want to say?
It's. I remember end of the film. I turned round to Keith, and in my head, I said "wow," but I actually said "fuck," and because right up to the end, and then that sequence, that credit sequence at the end with that music pumping, that was excellent and an excellent fit to it. So, not a masterpiece, but definitely close to a 5-star movie. Was definitely for me. And again, I'll go back and revisit it over and over again.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Will you go back and watch this? Will you go back and buy it? Will it be something you'll revisit? And like for me, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll watch certainly a few more times. I'll be picking it up when it's finally out.
Well, I've already bought it. It just hasn't arrived yet. But by the time this podcast is aired, hopefully I'll be enjoying it. But
And be on viewings number 6.
well, you never know. But no, I mean,
Or 7.
it's funny actually because tonight we've talked a lot around the subject.
Yeah,
and I do feel like in some respects we didn't really drill that much into it. But it's interesting the other debate that it's spawned this evening. So, but yeah, I mean, loads to say about the film. To be fair, most of it's already been said on numerous other podcasts. But I'm glad that we got to sort of wax lyrical about it. I loved it. It was one of the most enjoyable films of 2018 for me, and one of the biggest surprises, and definitely in terms of in a time where I enjoy superhero movies, I watch them all, but in a time when we're sort of inundated with them, I found this to be a breath of fresh air, and I do sort of stand by what I say at the beginning in the fact that I think it is good that not everything that's Marvel property is in the MCU, because I just think it's nice that we get these alternative films, of which this was one, along with, as we've already mentioned, Logan and Deadpool and the X-Men and all that sort of stuff. So I really enjoyed it, but no doubt we will probably have a podcast where we discuss Avengers Endgame at some point as well, no doubt. But yeah, no, I loved it.
I really loved it, and I think it's like a gold standard of comic book films. I mean, it's it's an origin story. It's done really well. And you have all the different characters there go through a journey as well. It isn't just about Miles Morales. It's about Peter B. Parker learning that his fear of having children was unfounded.
Another connection to Jurassic Park.
There you go.
Yeah, Spider-Gwen realising that she can have friends. She doesn't have to be alone. And Spider-Noir discovering colour.
What did Spider-Ham discover?
That
animals can speak.
Well, no, I think
go down a treat with some applesauce.
Well, I think he has some wonderful moments as well. I mean, the bit where they're fighting Scorpion at the end, and he goes, "You don't like animation," and he absolutely beats up Scorpion, which was great. But I mean, I think that the whole what's so good about the film as well is that the whole idea that that anybody could be Spider-Man. Yes. I mean, this is one of the points of the film, is that Miles Morales goes through this transformation, becomes Spider-Man, and it isn't because he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, but he takes a leap of faith and believes in himself, and that belief is what makes him become the new Spider-Man. And it's a lesson I don't think gets told too much in films these days, or is earned I think we get a lot of characters who come to the same conclusion, but you don't feel like you've come along with them on that journey, or that they've come so far. It's so strange because I watched this at the weekend, and I watched Teen Wolf at the weekend, and Teen Wolf and the film, yeah. Right. Not the TV series. Fuck the TV series. But the thing about Teen Wolf is it has a similar lesson. I know you guys are laughing at me, but stick with me on this. But Teen Wolf is about somebody who discovers that they have this power, and then realizes that actually the best thing for them, the best thing to get ahead, is to be themselves.
Yeah.
And to bring up other people.
Wait, are you saying that the real power was inside them the whole time?
We're all going to go now and do some van surfing.
But a few of us actually have the beards already.
But, I mean, the thing about Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse is it does remind me of the blockbuster films of the 80s, where so much of it was more character-based than it was, about the effects. And I think that's kind of one of the things that is missing from a lot of films, some of the blockbuster films. It seems to be more about the effects and less about character. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's one of the things that I'll come back to watch this film, because, I want to go for that journey again.
Yeah, you really do care about the characters in this film.
And it's something, it's a way of storytelling that's is sadly lacking in films today.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I've just seen Hellboy, and
it's bad.
We're yet to review it, so I can't say too much. But
yeah, I studio interference is a big thing on that one.
Do you think so?
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's a fact. We know Neil Marshall was fired from it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He fired or he walked off, but he wasn't not in charge of the edit of that film. So yeah.
I can't say I'm excited, if I'm honest.
No, and that's the fact that we never got the third Guillermo del Toro Hellboy.
But I mean, like, you look at this and they totally understand the character of Spider-Man. Mm. They totally get it.
Well, they understand.
Then I look at that and they don't understand the character.
They understand the humour. They understand the visuals. They understand the pathos. They understand, the emotion of it. It's one of those things where everything in this film works. It's all in sync and it works, and the storytelling is just
it's a beautiful balance, because it could have gone either way, couldn't it?
Yeah.
The key thing for me, and I can't remember if it was Liz or my old boss who told me this about Spider-Man, because he's a big Spider-Man fan. My old boss is a big Spider-Man fan, and he said, "Look," or Liz said, again, can't remember. Someone told me that, look, the key thing with Peter Parker is, and Spider-Man is, the worse things get, the funnier and more upbeat he gets. And that, I think, they kind of got. Mm-hmm. Yes, you get that, totally.
Yeah. With the whole reluctant mentor to Miles Morales as the Padawan, if you like. Yeah. But that whole dynamic worked really well, and even the way they chose to tell it, like they're having a conversation that they could have just been, stood in the park or something having, but no, they're actually walking up and down the side of a building while they're talking about it, where Miles is trying to literally find his feet, and use his power, whereas Peter's just walking backwards and forwards, and then he has that glitch right in the middle where he falls down and stuff. But I mean,
making
that's
the
all
metaphor
just
work. That's beautiful.
It just works so well. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we could talk loads more, but
Well, I
you
could,
know,
yes.
yeah. I mean, we've kind of gone round the houses a bit, which is good. I mean, that's the point of a discussion podcast like this. So that's fine.
Good fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up in our usual manner, and that's by asking our guests what you guys are up to and how people can contact you.
Graham.
I am not on social media. Having a quiet period at the moment. And I've been enjoying my holidays. And that's me signing out.
Brilliant.
Wow. And Paul, you know, tell the folks where they can find your other podcasts.
You can find our other podcasts on the Orbital Comics website or on iTunes if you search Orbital Comics or Orbiting Comics. We are there. You should particularly listen to Frame by Frame, which is our film review podcast where we review all the new comic book movies and TV whenever we can. And you can catch me on Twitter at ManReadComic. Yeah, that's it.
And are you working on anything else? Or anything
No,
else?
My time is almost exclusively taken up with being at the shop or doing podcasts for the shop and other content for the shop, which I enjoy very much. And we got loads more planned for the rest of 2019. And yeah, keep them peeled. Do check us out. Do come and look at the shop. That's the main thing. Is I would love to see people who are listening to your podcast, which I've had so much fun being on, and I'm very honoured to be asked to come back a second time. Thank you very much. I would love you guys to come and visit the shop, 8 Great Newport Street, WC2, Orbital Comics, London's best back issue shop. Please come and see us.
And Keith, where can people find out more about your work?
Well, if you go on to YouTube and you put in British Eyles, that's EYLES, as in my last name, there are some short films on there that I've written and produced and directed. If you want to get in touch via the podcast here. And please, do spread the word and give us a like and a 5-star review would be great.
Are you guys on Twitter?
Yes.
As the podcast?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure you'll get it.
Yeah.
I just want to know from me. I should have just waited.
I'm sure I will.
I've spoiled the ending.
No, you've made it.
Well, you can find my work at independentrunnings.com. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcast providers. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Yes, we're on Twitter. At Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. And please leave us a rating and review, especially 5 stars. And yes, and thank you for listening to this podcast. And thank you to our guests.
No, thank you all. I've had a lot of fun. Been excellent.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm really glad to be doing it again.
And please join us again for the next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.